jobs are a byproduct of investment. Innovation is a product of investment. And in fact, if you do your correlation coefficients, the highest correlation coefficient to jobs is capital investment. And so I step back and say, if you want to create an environment for innovation, an environment healthy for jobs, you have to create an environment that's very attractive for investment. And so from a public policy standpoint, when I think about what does that environment look like, what are the triggers you can pull on to drive investment, thereby jobs and innovation, I mean, you'd be disappointed if a businessman didn't stand up here and say tax policy is obviously one of the greatest drivers of investment, and obvious regulation being another one. And tax policy is kind of front and center from my standpoint. You know, if you want more of something, you know, what should be your tax policy? You tax it less. If you want less of it, you tax it more. We do that with tobacco and alcohol. You tax it so you don't, generate as much consumption. And it was maddening, to me, coming up to the last part of last year, somebody who invests $19 billion a year, as we were headed towards this cliff of driving up capital costs dramatically. Dividend taxes, capital gains taxes, accelerated depreciation, all these things going away. They ultimately got put in. I commend the administration. I commend Senator McConnell for getting this put in place. And it brought some stability. It kept capital costs down. It allowed us to continue investing at the same pace we're investing. But those are, I can't tell you how critical those are from an infrastructure provider to continue to drive investment and to drive job creation in all these medium that Jeff was talking about. The next, and I would say just as important, is regulation. And regulation affects capital costs in that it can create uncertainty. And so when I think of how our environment is regulated, and you heard Jeff talk about what's going on, we are, as a company, AT&T, and I would even suggest as an industry, we are almost at full investment capacity. I don't know that we could put much more capital away than we're putting away at this time in the industry. And so regulation is one of those things that sticks its head up and creates uncertainty, and obviously uncertainty is one of the greatest drivers of capital costs as well. That's why we worked very aggressively. I take my hat off to Julius and his team that we were able to come to a place on how wireless and the internet is regulated that Julius would know I was lying if I said I was totally pleased with it. But look, it's a place where we know what we have. It accomplishes two variables. I always say regulation needs to be fair, it needs to be consistent.